Started. Call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody. Glad you're here on this nice kind of gray day. I'm really excited to see all the people in our valley taking advantage of our parks and our beautiful scenery, and that's really encouraging. I saw came to pick up my mail the other day, and there were 14 people waiting to use the pickleball court. There were people walking the trails. We even had some people in inner tubes on our park pond. I thought that was unique. It was wonderful. Okay. I would like to have Bill Oliver offer our invocation this morning.
All right, thank you. You know, kind of given everything that's been going on lately in our nation, and as we've been studying the book of Nehemiah, there were a couple of things that were kind of appropriate that I thought I'd share. The context here is Nehemiah has returned to Jerusalem, and he's rebuilding the wall and the city and trying to improve the situation for the citizens there. And they were up against quite a bit of challenges, people that were against it, and enemies were out there, and it's kind of a metaphor for spiritual warfare. It's kind of going on in our country right now. So on chapter 4, verse 11, the enemy said, "Before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them, and we'll kill them and put an end to the work." And the work being the good thing about improving the country and our environment. And Nehemiah then pulled everybody together and said, "Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. And really kind of the message in there was, keep your face to the Lord, your focus there, and focus on the work ahead of you. Try to improve your situations. So I thought that was very appropriate.
Thank you, Bill. That was very appropriate. Thank you, Bill. I know the council got their council packet from Ella and Karen. Thank you, Ella and Karen. On our agenda, we're at item number 2, which is to adopt the agenda. I would like to ask an item, and I'm going to call it 6A, be added to the agenda, and this is an item to discuss a special request from the Sid Weber Memorial Cancer Fund. I hope Milt Gillespie will be with us. Ella, if you see him, if you could let him get some audio, that would be great.
Okay. Did you not get my email on that? I sent him a form, because normally what happens is I approve those, and I did that last year, so I had already approved that.
Okay, so we don't need to have a discussion on that.
No, you do not need to. No, ma'am, you do not need to have a discussion. That's something I handle.
Okay, great. I saw that, but I wanted to let the council know, and what it is they want to have an approval for some special banners during a time period that they haven't announced yet, to help celebrate the Sid Weber Memorial Cancer Fund activities, and I think it's a worthy cause. Okay, so then we don't need it. We don't need to add that to agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as written?
So moved.
Okay, Bill made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Bruce, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that's passed. All right, Ms. Ella, you're up with the city manager report.
Okay, the first item is the Public Works Department report. I just want to give you a couple of updates on things that are transpiring. Just want to provide you some information that James had given me for the leaf removal from the ditches and that kind of thing, just to give you an idea how long and how labor intensive it was. It took almost 4 months to get it done. There was a total of 304 hours, 5 men, and a total of 121 loads of leaves. That's how many. And this was also on the F550 and 350. But that was the total number of loads. So just to give you an idea how much we had in our ditches that the guys have, I think, have done a fabulous job on. I know James is in here with the chief, so I just want to give a shout out to James and his guys for all the hard work that they did with this, and the ditches look great. I'm getting nothing but positive comments, so I want to give him a shout out about that. The other item is the road striping. You all had approved for the road striping to be done. Daniel has had a few issues, I believe, with equipment. He hopes to get started. If the rain will let up, he'll get started on that. As soon as he gives me a day in advance, I am going to send out an email to let people know to be looking for that. So hopefully we can get that done maybe this week if the rain will let off. We'll just have to see how it goes. Also, they're continuing, as you know, they're doing the grass cutting around, so just be mindful when they are out cutting grass to be careful, and just watch as you're traveling the roads. The other item is the bucket truck. Originally, we knew we could not afford a new one. First of all, we started looking at a new one. A new one is like $90,000 to $120,000. We don't use a bucket truck that much. We use it for cutting, trimming the trees, and also for Christmas lights. So we really don't want to put that much money in. I have found a couple, actually found one that is in Flowery Branch, and we can get that truck for like $48,500. Now it is a newer truck. It's a 2015. We've not looked at the truck. We had found a couple of other trucks that were 10 and 12 years old, and looking at the pictures and where they came from up north. And when I started looking at the pictures for say $20,000, $25,000, they were rust buckets. I don't want to have to put this 48.5 in it, but from what I keep finding, I can't find anything any cheaper. And I just want to know, is council in agreement with trying to go this route? Originally, it was budgeted for the $25,000, but we do have some money left from the police department vehicle since they did not cost as much as what we had anticipated. So we can make up the difference with that. And I just, before I went too far into this, before we went and looked or I had the guy bring the truck, I just wanted to know if y'all would be interested in doing that, or if you have other suggestions.
Ella, how much is left in the police department?
I think it's right about 22. It's going to be close, but we should be pretty close to what we have left. Yes. It may be a little bit more. I don't have the vehicles in yet with the actual equipment. So I'm just looking at what we budgeted. We're like 22, maybe 22, 25 according to the equipment. So we should be pretty close with what we have to pay for this truck at the 48.5, if it's even still available. It was available as of Friday because he contacted me, but I did not want to get too far into this before I, got with you all to see how you felt about it.
Ella, you mentioned at one point that you thought it would be advantageous for you and James and maybe Jerry to go take a look at this truck.
Yeah, I did, and I've reached out to him, and I'm not sure. He mentioned he may even be able to bring us the truck so we don't have to travel. So I'll have to reach out to him again and see, but I didn't want to do that if we were not going to be able to purchase it. So,
Gotcha.
And just to let you all know, it's hard to find these smaller bucket trucks. We found some others that were quite a bit older, but they're dualies, and our little roads just won't handle these dualies. I mean, you get these tandem axles, and we just don't have the the need for something that heavy, that big. So, I want to get something that's going to last, but I don't want to just go out and just buy something just to have it either. It's not something that we use a whole lot. And I know we, at one point, we talked about renting, but every time we got to rent a piece of equipment around here, we end up waiting for them to come fix it. So I don't want to do that either. So just trying to get some guidance to see how you all feel. If you're comfortable with this, we'll, see what we can find out. And I'll still keep looking to see if I can find something different. But this is the right size truck that's a little newer, but it's, it would meet our needs and would last, it would last a long time. Because this other one has been here, I know James had mentioned it had been here, I know at least 15, 16 years. So it's an old truck. It's a 97, I believe. So it is a very old bucket truck. And the hydraulics is the problem with a lot of these trucks. So you want to thoroughly have them checked out, and none of them come with warranties. I've tried to see if I could get a warranty. Nobody will sell us a warranty on them. That was the other issue I had. So I'm just, trying to cover all the bases. So I just want to see how you all feel about it.
Council, Ed, go ahead.
Is there any salvage value on the existing truck, Ella?
Yeah, we probably could sell it for about $4,000 to $5,000
Okay.
as it is.
Jim?
Madam Mayor, subject to James and Jerry and Ella taking a look at it, making sure that it's functional and making sure it's the right truck that we're going to be able to use to trim the trees. Problem with the price.
Okay.
That's about half the price of a brand new one.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's only 5 years old, so that makes me feel a little better about it.
It's fantastic. It's better than I had ever expected.
Anybody else need to ask a question or send some input?
I just have an observation.
Okay, Bill.
I personally, trying to cheap out on something like this is probably not a good idea. That'll just create more issues, higher maintenance costs.
All right.
Be right back in the same boat. So if we really need this, if it's that critical, I would support spending a little bit more money and getting something that we feel real good about and has been thoroughly checked out. Will have a better shelf life for us. Otherwise, let's not spend anything if we can't find that.
Well, I agree, and that's why I've been hesitant to do it because, and I'm sure most of you all know, we've got some issues with our backhoe as well, and it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks before we can even get that checked out. So, more than likely that's hydraulics. So we don't know what that's going to cost to get that fixed. So, it's just one of these things. Do you go out and buy something knowing you may have to do something else with the backhoe, or do we wait? I mean, it's one of these things, you don't know which way to go sometimes, but you have to have the equipment. Backhoe to me is much more important than a bucket truck. So if it means I need to hold up until, I can find out exactly what's wrong with the backhoe, we may just do that, just to see, just to give you a heads up on where we're at. Because a new backhoe would be rather expensive right now. I just don't think we want to do that.
Now, the bucket truck is what we use to trim trees, which we have a lot that need trimming, correct?
Yes, we do. We have quite a bit that needs trimming. And this lift is a little higher. We looked at some others, but we need something that will get us on up there, but also is stable. I don't know if any of you all have ever had the privilege of being in bucket trucks, but you want to make sure it's secure. So that's a very major concern with me because I have done that. So you just want to be sure that it is secure and that you can do what you need to for your employees for the safety aspect of it.
Well, it's starting to sound like we have some priorities here. And you just mentioned the priority for sure is the backhoe.
Definitely. Definitely.
And, it seems prudent if we can, as quickly as possible, figure out what repair costs would be.
Oh yeah. Well, we've given him, he's going to come pick it up. James has contacted him. He's gonna come pick it up as soon as he can to give us an idea. We've given him the leeway up to $1,000 to see what's going on, because we don't know how bad it is, but more than likely it's hydraulics. You know, after a while, it's just like anything with hydraulics. They just wear out. You have to replace all this, or, you know,
All
ditch
the
it, go
hoses
on.
and the pumps, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Ed,
That's
Ed,
exactly
go
it.
ahead.
I
Ed,
think it's important that we give our workers good equipment so they can be efficient in doing their work. So I don't see us putting off getting the bucket truck. We need it. There's work to be done. If you put it off, then the work doesn't get done. So as
Yes,
far
sir.
as I'm concerned, I think we need to move on that, and then we'll deal with the backhoe as you get us information on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Jim,
Holly, I think
yeah,
it may be unfortunate if we're having problems with both of them at the same time, that they come up together. But the bottom line is, you've got to have the right equipment. And the bucket
Agreed.
trucks don't grow on trees, backhoes are around. You know, I think we ought to strike while the iron is hot, and we'll figure out the backhoe issue.
Okay.
well,
And
hopefully
because
Ella,
we've got to have a
Ella can,
backhoe. Absolutely.
hopefully Ella can have us all this information by next Tuesday for our regular council meeting, when we can take action on these things, but
We can do this as a special purchase, since we are in the situation trying to buy. You can't bid out for a used bucket truck. You know, we normally require you bid all this out, but since this is a special purchase, I feel comfortable, you know, with you all's approval to move forward with this, if this particular one does check out. So,
Right.
do we need a motion and a vote on that, Ella?
no, ma'am, I just wanted some guidance. I got it on video, so
Okay.
we're good.
Okay. Bruce, or Moody, do you all have anything to add to this discussion?
No, I think I agree with Jim, but we need to check this out and don't let it get away. Like she says, these things are not that easy to find.
Okay,
No, I agree.
okay.
All
All
right.
right, you got it on video now, Ella.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
we're good. I'll keep y'all updated. All right, my next item on here is the website update. And I have to say, let's give a shout out to Creative Design that has done our website, and we should be ready to go live this week, finally. I'm excited. I think you all will be pleased with the results. I'm sure there'll be some tweaks. We'll want to make some changes, you know. It's just that a lot of the layout is different, because we needed to have a more professional website. I think I had sent you all the link previously, and I'm excited to see what you all think with the final product. It is going to be different. It's going to take some time, but I think overall, I think people are really going to like what it has on it. We have a lot of the same information. It's just the layout and the accessibility to get where you need to go is a lot simpler. You can go in, type in a word, it'll take you to it. Also, too, it has our link for our codification that is complete. So that's another plus. Don't know if you all, if you've looked at the codification. I find myself using it all the time. I have me a shortcut, I go straight to it, and it's amazing. You know, I love it. I really like that. So I think we'll be good to move forward with that. And I'll shoot you all an email to let you know we're up and live. I'll send something out to everyone to let them know exactly when it's going live, and keep everyone updated on that.
Right?
And will this be easy to update so that the information stays current?
Yes, now there will be a delay, because what we're doing with this website, we are, for the first few months, they're going to manage the website for us. That way we don't get in there and mess something up. She's going to be uploading stuff once a month. So it won't be something happens, it's automatically there. As far as, now your council meetings will be there because we have a YouTube link, but the actual minutes will not be just automatically show up each time. So that's something to be mindful of, that it does not update automatically every time we have a meeting. Everything is done once a month. But we still, we'll let people know if you go on, you don't see what you want. We can look and see if we have it, and if we've not put it up yet, because like I said, it will be updated once a month.
Eventually, the City Hall staff is going to be trained to do the updating, correct?
There will be at some point, no, not in the near future, because that is one thing that when we went with this company, they're very specific about, they want to maintain it so far out. So it will be some time before we actually updating it. We just submit the information to them and they update it.
By some time, you mean what, Ella?
Possibly 6 months or a year.
So there's a monthly stipend we're paying them?
Yes, that was part of the contract. Yes, it was, when it was approved.
Well, I understood in previous conversations, though, Ella, that we could, we weren't obligated to that, to them doing the updates.
We are not, but we are for a minimum of 6 months. That was part of it.
And that's cost us how much per month?
I believe it's like $500 a month.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's expensive for website updates and keeping them up to date. And it's because when they go in and they build this, y'all know we added some stuff and it was rather expensive to add. So when you start going in, they want to make sure that everything is flowing right. If there's any problems, that's why she wants to make sure that everything flows, well. And if we see, I'll go back and ask, hey, can we do this ourselves? If we get to that point and we feel like we can do this, we'll move forward with that too and say, hey, let us do this. I think I have enough pull with the company, after this is my second site I've done with them. I think they'll work with me.
So the 6 months starts as soon as it goes live?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. So we're through the end of the year.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the next item is the U.S. Census. I'm getting two different numbers. Holly, I think you had sent me something that said it was 40%, I think 44%. But then when you go and look online, and I don't know if it's separating us out from Dillard or what, since we have the same zip code and that's what you normally put in. But we need to remind people to complete their census information. And to my knowledge, I've not seen anything go out in the mail. I know that COVID-19 has delayed the home visits, but this may be something that we need to send out to our citizens again to let them know to complete the census.
That 44% was from the GMA offices, and it was specific to Sky Valley. In that 44% of Sky Valleyans have completed the questionnaire for the U.S. Census.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this: was that total based on households, or was it based on actual people that live here? Did it
Households.
specify?
It was
Okay.
households, I believe.
Okay, so that may be about right then, because households we probably have a good 50%.
Right. I don't know what the normal response is every 10 years, but that was
Yeah.
the only statistics they gave.
Okay, all right, good deal.
Okay. Any
All
other
right.
discussions or questions for Ella on her manager's report? Okay, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce Rick Story, the Director of Development with Forward Rabin, and he's going to tell us everything he knows about it. Right, Rick?
I bet. Thank you very much, Mayor Stahl. I appreciate that, and just appreciate again being with you. I'm not muted, am I? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay, I thought I had accidentally muted myself there, but thank you again for having me back this morning, and just really appreciate it, and appreciate being able to share this time with you. And I do have a PowerPoint, but Ella, I'm looking at the screen here. I think most people are on the phone. I can just talk through this if that's more helpful, and can email this out, and then we can have more time for question and answer, or we can pull it up, whichever is easy.
Whichever you want to do. I can try and share it or whatever. Would you want to talk?
It's a lovely presentation, Rick. Why don't you try to pull it up?
Okay, certainly, we could do that. And,
Okay. Let's see. Here we go. That
right.
should do it.
oh, okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Well done.
Thank you. I could not have done that without you, believe me. And
You're welcome.
appreciate- now, am I controlling this or
Yes, I actually am controlling it. Well, yes, I am controlling it. So just let me know when you want to move down.
we can certainly go to the next one? And I did just
Okay.
want to say welcome to Forward Raven. And many of you may already know, the origin of Forward Raven, the genesis of it. Our commissioners realized a couple of years ago that we are poised for growth and that people are looking at our community as a place to live, a place to work. We've got great quality of life, great resources here. And so for all those reasons, they wanted to do something proactively. They wanted to get ready to handle that growth in a responsible way. And so that discussion pretty much gave birth to Forward Raven. We did realize that the growth is happening and it will either happen to us or for us. So we wanted to be ready for it and take control of that. And I'll just move on through these fairly quickly. We can go to the next slide. So yes, what is Forward Raven? Many people have asked that, what is it? And Forward Raven is a new community organization. It is the mechanism that we have conceptualized to get where we want to go. The commissioners had this vision of bringing all of the county-funded economic development entities together and putting them under one roof. And they said, okay, how do we do that? We have some very distinct entities. How do we do that? How do we put it together? Forward Raven became the answer to that. It's the new organization that sort of gathers those all together. And we can move forward.
Okay.
A couple of these next slides just show that we did have, our chamber, our welcome center, our development authority. We had a tourism authority, all working very hard and doing some great work, but all working independently. So we wanted to put it together. And certainly, how did it start? Vision of the commission. I had worked with a program at the University of Georgia called Archway. And it's a community-based initiative that does exactly what we're trying to do. So that's how it came together. There is a great deal of proven success in other communities. I did this in Habersham County. I think Ella saw this down in Moultrie. Moultrie was actually the pilot community for Archway. And there's our picture of our umbrella. Someone asked me, how do you best explain this in a picture? How do you best explain this in a diagram? Well, that's what I came up with. An umbrella with each of those clouds underneath it, each touching, each interacting with each other. But Forward Raven is the umbrella organization that coordinates all that activity. Okay. And we do have an interim board, a transition team. And this is what I really wanted to talk to you guys about. That picture there, that's a motley crew, some really good folks there. That is our interim board, our transition team. And those folks have worked very hard. We have Juanita Shope from the chamber, of course, myself, Pete Halter and Robert Pittman and Claude Dillard from the Development Authority, and then Jim Wallace and Stephen Arbeiter from the Tourism Authority. And Commissioner Arbeiter also from the county. And so that has been our interim board. But what we're in the process of doing is moving into a permanent community board. And this next slide sort of conceptualizes that structure. We do want a representative from each city, as well as representatives from the county. We want to include our business sector. We want our superintendent of schools, of course, our chamber. I failed to list the Development Authority on here, but they will be at the table as well. And we want to have a 21-member community board that is all-inclusive. That board will be a big board, and we will probably only meet quarterly for that reason. But certainly, Sky Valley will have a seat at that table, and we're excited about that. Certainly want you there. And that seat can be Mayor Stiles or anyone that she wants to designate. our organization, Forward Rabun, our staff just day to day looks like this. Slide 10. I'm the Director of Development. Of course, we have CJ Thompson, who is our new Marketing and Tourism Director. Claude Dillard is actually not with us on a daily basis, but he is Chairman of the Development Authority. We have Linda Schofield as our Welcome Center Manager, and then Juanita Shope, who is President of our Chamber, and we're all here officing together now. We have all moved in and are co-located here in our Welcome Center. Of course, the advantages are basically synergy. I think you could sum each of those bullet points up by saying synergy. The whole of the sum is greater than the parts. We're working together, and I think that's going to be much more efficient and much more effective as we go along. We are putting together a unified message, and we're going to have a marketing campaign, a campaign for business development, all working in tandem. And so, of course, the possibilities we hope are that we will have endless possibilities, really, as we're marketing all the assets, and we are upselling all of Rabun County. And speaking of our Welcome Center, we're still not officially open yet because of COVID, but I would like to invite each of you. I know you'll have to come one by one or two by two, so we don't have a quorum, but certainly would love to have you come down at your convenience, and I will give you a VIP tour. We're almost ready to open. We don't quite have all of our pictures on the wall yet, but we pretty much have everything else in place. And we certainly would love to show you around and give you a tour. This is designed to be a public-private partnership, and that seems to be working well. It's a 501c6. And we actually received just yesterday a beautiful Sky Valley golf bag for the center. Mr. and Mrs. Collins brought that down. I've been working with Mr. O'Keefe, and we really appreciate that, by the way, and are excited about very proudly displaying that here in the center. It's going to be very interactive. We've got a number of touchscreen TVs that are on order. They're actually on quarantine in California with U.S. Customs because they did come to us from China. And so they're sitting there in their quarantine until we can have them released and receive them, and they'll go on the wall. One thing they will do is scroll pictures of waterfalls, restaurants, shops, different places throughout our community. And I can't wait to have that up on the wall. We're going to have pictures of Mud Creek Falls. We'll have beautiful pictures of Sky Valley up there, anything that y'all want. And the real crux of this discussion that I wanted to share this with you, but I also wanted to, number one, tell you we thank you for your hotel motel tax contribution. We appreciate that, and really looking forward to partnering with you in that regard. But we also want to come back to you and ask you what you would like for us to say about Sky Valley here in our center. And I know we can talk about this as an ongoing conversation, and we'll do this through our board and having you there at the table, but we want to market you as you would like to be marketed. And we want to, come back to you and as I said, first of all, say thank you. And then second, just say, what would you like for us to say about you? What things about Sky Valley would you like for us to accentuate here in the center? And what would you like for us to tell people as they are stopping in here, as they're visiting? And so that's part of the discussion. And certainly the second part of the discussion is at the community table, as we have that community board. My hope is that group will not only be a group to brainstorm, come up with marketing ideas, but it will also be a community board that really comes together as one and really works together. And that we put a venue together where cities can sit down quarterly and have discussions with each other on how they can help each other. So I've talked longer than I meant to. I want to hear more from you, and certainly we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have or any feedback. So thank you, Ella, for running that for me. I could not have done that myself.
Glad it worked.
I think, Rick, what we'd like to see is cardboard cutouts of the council, possibly put into that welcome center, and then they can be speaking as the public goes by. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be scary.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to working with you all. And I'm glad that you and Mr. O'Keefe have touched base, and we thank the Country Club for bringing a golf bag to you,
Certainly.
to the center, not to you, excuse me.
Well, thank you. And I do have a wall in front for pictures of each mayor, so I will be calling you.
Oh, gag, no.
I'll be getting back in touch with you there, but it's certainly, I sincerely mean, anytime you come down, would love to show you around the center. It doesn't matter that we're not open yet. We'll let you come down at your convenience.
Would you tell us where the center is?
Yes, ma'am. Highway 441 south of Clayton at the intersection of Seed Tick Road, and we're just down from Oinkers. And we have a Welcome Center sign up. We are on the right side of the road, and that's strategic to try to catch people as they're coming in. And hopefully we will be opening maybe mid-July. That has been sort of a moving target with everything going on. But we do plan to have a big grand opening, and we'll certainly let you know about that. We had targeted May 15th, and obviously that did not work out. I had some dignitaries scheduled to come, and nobody got to do anything, but we will be having a big grand opening at some point. We may do a soft opening first, just given our circumstances right now. Certainly, you're all invited to both.
Ed, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Rick, I'm just curious, the Welcome Center sounds like that's going to be first class. But have there been any other marketing initiatives, I guess, over the past 6 months in terms of advertising? Or I think previously they were doing some site marketing with cell phone links, but is there anything like that going on?
Yes, sir. We did have some lag time between the dissolution of the Tourism Development Authority and us picking up, and that concerned me. We've hired a marketing firm called Rock, Paper, Scissors in Lawrenceville. I've also asked our tech people to design these touch screens so that emails can be entered in. And we now have the Explore Raven website back up and running. There was a tremendous database on that website of emails and people that had left information from previous visits. So we're now able to take that, and we're going to link it to what we have here in the new center, and we'll be able to target market, capture emails and list by topics of interest. In other words, if someone comes in and they put in their email and they want to play golf, they'll automatically get information on Sky Valley and other golf courses, and we can link them up that way. So yes, sir. The lag did concern me, and so we've had to run to catch up a little bit, but I think we're almost there. So I'm excited about that part of it. It's going to be very techno, and we'll also send Twitter feeds, Facebook feeds, Instagram, all that stuff. We've got set up to go.
Good.
Anybody else?
Rick, I noticed that you mentioned attracting industry to Raven County to provide some jobs. Is it true that tourism is now a bigger source of income in Raven County than either industry or agriculture?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tourism is our number one. Of course, agriculture is certainly important. And my biggest challenge on the Development Authority side is looking for sustainable industry that is a right fit for us. And I've had many discussions with my colleagues in Atlanta at the Department of Economic Development. They'll make suggestions about different types of industry, and then I bring them up here for a visit, and they'll say, okay, you guys are a very unique fit. And so we're looking at, things that just fit us, and that is a special niche because we're certainly not a smokestack and big factory kind of community. And I know that we don't want to be.
Right.
So sometimes the exact fit is tough, it's challenging. And of course you have workforce development challenges and everything, but we are looking at niche industries that just fit our community.
Okay.
And we're going beyond tourism as well to look at, sustainable jobs with benefits and things like that. But tourism is our number one. Yes, sir.
Okay. In the wake of this COVID-19 thing, it's questionable that we're ever going to go back to the same kinds of workplaces, which fits in with a trend of good jobs going to the places where the quality of living is best. And that's Rabun County.
Sure.
So is it on your screen to improve the broadband capabilities in Rabun County so that these folks can actually work from home and stay connected to the rest of the world? Because those could be high dollar jobs, tremendous benefits for the local community.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is my niche market. And as you said, with the COVID situation, I'm talking to people every day who want to get out of Atlanta. They want to come up here and live and work. And I called a friend of mine in Washington that I used to work with. She now is a lobbyist for Verizon. And I called her and I said, I need a favor. And she said, sure, what can I do? I said, I need 5G in my community. And she said, Rick, do you realize what you just asked me? I said, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But I had 2 meetings yesterday, actually. One was with Windstream. It was very brief, but we're going to have another another meeting. But that is certainly one of our top priorities. And especially now, that was timely 6 months ago, but it has become extremely timely with the COVID situation. And I've actually lost count of the number of folks that I've talked with, met with, and talked to just by phone who have said, we really want to come to your community. I could work from home, or my company is telling me that that's my only option is to work from home, but you don't have internet to support what I do. So that has become an extreme priority.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Yes, sir.
Do you think there's federal or state monies that can go towards this endeavor, Rick?
I am certainly looking, and
Okay.
I've seen some things come available just recently, or things that are being talked about. And I've actually talked to friends in Washington at the federal level, as well as my friends down at the General Assembly. And, I am scanning and looking every day for different things. There are opportunities on both, I think, the public and the private side of that, just given our situation currently.
I think I have been looking at the real estate statistics lately, and it seems we're having an uptick of home sales. And I have heard from some of the realtors, it's people trying to get away from the big cities because of COVID. And yes, they do want to work at home.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with a group of realtors on Friday, and they told me, they said, we're selling houses without even trying right now.
Yeah.
And they said it was exactly that people were saying, I've got to get out of the city, or I want to get my children out of the city.
Yeah.
I've got to come to a safe place to live and work.
Rick, when you spoke with Verizon folks, she commented, what that you're asking, is it a dollar? Is it a big dollar that's a stumbling block, or what is the big holdback for getting that here?
Yes, sir. That was it. And, after we had joked about it and got to the serious part of the conversation, she said, do you realize the cost of installing the infrastructure to support that? And she said, we really don't have, infrastructure above Gainesville that would even come close to that. And so it is cost, but we talked about, possibilities there and options. And, she didn't completely shut the idea down. She just told me that I was asking a lot, and I knew I was, going into the conversation, but it was cost. And I was specifically talking about 5G, but apparently that just requires so many more towers to relay the signal necessary. But it was all about cost.
So that was basically for cell phone service or for internet?
For internet, we were talking specifically about internet.
Okay. Any other comments for Rick before we let him slide away? Thank you so much, Rick. It was wonderful, and I know we'll be talking to you all a lot.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you again for your participation. Y'all were the first city that remitted your hotel motel tax, and I just look forward to continuing that conversation with you to see what we can now do for you.
Do we get a sign that says that?
I think so. I think it's
Okay.
Becky, you can put the sign next to Holly's picture in the visitor center.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Rick.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. The next item on our agenda is to discuss the proposed City of Sky Valley vision and mission statement. I believe we brought this up at a previous meeting. We have a draft version of the vision and mission statement. And what I would like to do is send it out through the city to everyone in internet land. And I would like to include some possible changes that some of the council members have suggested and get the community input on this before we finalize a vision and mission statement, because they are important to help direct us in our business. So that's probably what we're going to do. Anybody else at this point need to say anything before we move on? Okay, we're going to move on now. Next, we have a discussion about possible editing of the following ordinances. We know that they've all been codified, and I agree with Ella. I've seen them. They look great. The Municode website's legal staff went through all our ordinances, made sure that they coincided with Georgia law, and produced a uniform format that's easy to find what you need to find. And I think they did a wonderful job. Codification is also part of our Sky Valley Charter. It says that we must do this. So with that in mind, Jim, I know that you had some questions and some ordinances that you wanted us to look at, and those were included in our packet. Why don't we do these one at a time? We will have discussions about them. Of course, we can take no actions. This is just a discussion period. So Jim, you want to start with chapter 6, which is, I guess, ordinance 6. Yeah.
Okay, surely. And you all get to decide whether or not any of these are important enough to take action on, or if they even need any discussion. Chapter 6 deals with animals in Sky Valley. Section 6.5 deals with wild animals and states it shall be unlawful to pursue, capture, willfully kill any wild bird or animal within the city. This section shall not apply to insects. That was an amendment some time ago. As you know, we have a program to control the wild pigs, and since we have that program, I recall how people have taken umbrage at the city not having to follow the rules of our ordinances, and so I would propose an amendment to add an additional sentence to section 6.5 on wild animals, the sole which prohibits killing wild animals. The sole exception shall be for feral hogs under a city-sponsored program undertaken by the Sky Valley Police Department. I don't know if this is necessary, Doug, but it's an exception which would keep the city from being criticized for violating our own rules. Do we want to talk about that, or should I move on to section 6.6?
Let me inject something here. The hog trap is on state and federal property at this time. So that needs to be played into it because the federal law allows us to put with their permission. They had given us permission to locate the hog trap there. Also, since it is on federal property, DNR oversees this, so they are the ones that, you know, handle this. They have given us the permission to do this. So as it is written, we are not upholding our own because this is a DNR, it's a state ran operation. Just to chime in that, so.
Okay. Now I recall that at one point there were some things set up off of Knob Drive, which is certainly clearly within the city limits.
Yeah, there has been a couple of instances that I'm aware of where a trap was set out in city property or on somebody's personal property.
I guess the question I have on this specific point, Jim, is there any reason why we shouldn't add this to our city ordinances?
Yeah, I do not know of any reason why we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Do we want to take our valuable time to do it or not? That's.
And most of the time, if it is in the city, we have to put it on, we do put it on private property. So we have to get the property owner's permission as well, if it is on private property.
Well, I
This
think
may not
that-
be an issue, but it's another example of something that we might want to consider. I had noticed last summer some strange holes dug in my backyard down by the golf course. And the police department said they thought that was armadillos. And I would
Yes,
think
well-
armadillos is something we might want to eliminate. So do we need a specific clause in the ordinance for each animal, or is there some way we could?
No,
But
if
a
you look at
general-
the, well, and if you look at the definition, it says wildlife includes any mammal which is not normally domesticated in this state, including but not limited to bears, coyotes, foxes, mountain lions, opossums, raccoons, and skunks. So, I mean, we're pretty much, because it's saying that anything, when you look at wildlife, it talks about that.
Well, I was thinking
That's the definition.
if we wanted the police to have permission to eliminate armadillos, would,
Well, I can tell you, our guys probably don't want to touch an armadillo because DNR has instructed us that an armadillo should not even be touched with a shovel, gloves, or anything because they contain a certain type of, I'm not sure what you call it, but DNR has instructed them because they have relayed the message to me as well that you are not to ever touch a armadillo because it has like leprosy, something like that is very contagious. So they're a unique creature in themselves.
So what is,
I mean,
what do
if we
they,
do have armadillos, we would need to deal with them in some fashion, wouldn't we?
DNR, the bit, I won't say what we probably need to do with them on air, but yeah. We all know.
Well, Moody, maybe we need to look at that language for sure.
Yeah, and we can
I
talk
think
with the
that's
police
great.
if it's really a problem. I've not seen one, but I've just noticed some strange holes dug in the yard.
I mean,
Yeah,
you can,
I've seen the same things. I'm sorry, Ala.
but I mean, you can go in with ordinances and you start adding things. This is why one reason we had to do the codification because everything had been cut and pasted and added here and added this one and that one. I'm not saying some of these don't need changes, but you know, we need to be careful we don't get back in the situation that we were in previously too.
so Jim, what are you proposing at this point?
simply that we add one sentence to be amended in line with Moody's comments about other critters that could be found objectionable or damaging property, or, the sole exception shall be for whatever it is under a city-sponsored program undertaken by the Sky Valley Police Department.
Ella, if we edit ordinance at this point, does it have to go through a Municode filter? Do they need to check it out before we
No.
even?
No,
They
what
do not.
happens is that we would bring it, Doug would type up the change, it would go to you all, since you don't do first and second and third and final, it would go to you all for approval. And once it's approved, then we would send it to Municode. And if they, at that point, needed to make changes, they would, but it does not go to them first. It has to go through you all first before they touch it.
Through the process.
Right.
Yeah, it's more than one meeting that we would have to do this.
No.
I believe we have to introduce it at a council meeting and
No.
then
No, they don't do that here. They used to, my understanding is that ordinances here only have to have a first and second and third and final all in one. There is no two, it's not two. Some cities do call for that, but they do not, they've not done that here since I've been here. Everything is done.
Doug, did you need to add anything at this point?
I'm not quite following what the city would have to approve these before it goes to the Municode folks.
Right.
Okay. All right.
We
Yeah,
were,
we would.
and we were talking about the city's approval process.
Yeah. I believe our charter does require a first and a second.
We've not ever done that previously.
I'll look it up in the charter again and get you the code section. But yeah, it does require a first and a second.
I think the first and second normally is at the same time, Doug. Normally a municipality is first and second, and then you do if your ordinance calls, your charter calls for a third and final, it's done at a separate meeting at the second time.
Okay, so we will look into that and get the straight skinny on that.
Well, I mean, the mayor had asked me, a month or so ago on that, and I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure we have to have a first and then a second. I'll double check it, though.
Which means 2 meetings, is that what you're saying, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, and you could do it if it's the type of ordinance that you really need passed immediately. You can have 2 separate meetings in one day if you want to. Typically, you
Right.
don't do that because it's not an emergency. But
I wouldn't think unless we have a horde of armadillos coming our way.
Correct.
This needs okay.
But it
I
needs to be read at one meeting and voted on at a second meeting.
Okay.
I'll double check the charter, but I'm pretty sure it does say that.
All right.
But-
Anybody else have any other comments about this particular ordinance that Jim has brought to bear?
I was just going to add, though, procedurally, whether the charter requires it or not, it might make sense if we're changing our ordinances to give the public a chance to have input and feedback. Thus,
Right.
maybe 2 meetings we should do anyway.
I think that was the whole purpose of the first and second reading, is
Yeah.
the way I understood it, yes. Okay, any other comment about Jim's proposal?
Well, we've only covered one item.
Right, for this item, yes.
And as far as if we were to vote, I'd say yes, we should add that clause in there about the feral hogs, because that's indeed will be an ongoing problem, and we can expect at some point maybe they get down into Sky Valley and we have to trap them and do what we do.
Do we include the armadillos? Or do we do a generic wild thing clause?
Well, that's what I was reading, the wildlife includes, it says, and it says it's not limited to, so if you start getting specific, you sort of limit yourself with it. But the way it's written now, it says including, but not limited to the way it's already written.
Would that, what is your comment, Jim, to that?
I'm just trying to process how that would affect the language. I think
It
it needs to be more
does, I mean,
wording.
because it's already a broad, you know, it's already included. It says included, but not limited to, so.
Okay.
Where are you reading, L?
I'm reading in section 6-7 where it talks about the definitions.
That's just the definitions of the wildlife, but that doesn't address whether or not the police would be allowed to deal with them, eliminate them. That's the.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the clause that we're talking about here in 6.5. It says that we're not allowed to kill any wild animal or bird, etc. So,
Well, it seems like the key things are if it's city sponsored and undertaken by the city police department,
Right.
and
we may
as
even
long
change
as
that
it
language.
aligns with state and federal law,
Exactly.
it could be left a little bit open.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Bill.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to leave that as is. Is that what we've decided?
I'll work on just a little bit of wording, because Ella mentioned that the Sky Valley Police Department and or state and federal agencies, which are under legal restrictions as to what they do as well.
Yeah, I'm saying we don't want to have a sole exception. We want a little broader exception than that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Agreed.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
So
Yes.
if that's your-
Yeah.
What is it they say in the movie?
Like the
So
word
let it
sole.
rewritten. Okay, let's go on to the next one, Jim.
Okay. The next is section 6.6 regarding impoundment of presumably dogs that are running loose. I would amend it. Okay, right now it says that impoundment occurs with the Raven County Humane Society Animal Shelter, which has not been in operation for some many years now. The current is Raven Paws for Life. And so this should be non-controversial. It's simply a substitution of Raven Paws for Life for the Raven County Humane Society Animal Shelter.
Okay,
no argument there.
nope,
Yep.
nope.
Okay, we'll.
But they're gonna
we'll
actually
look at this
start
again
doing our
next
service.
week. I'm
He
sorry.
didn't,
I said, are they gonna actually start doing our service? Because right now we don't get any benefit from them on it. We call them, they won't come.
Yes, there have been and are continuing discussions regarding that. But right now, we have an ordinance that refers to an impoundment organization that doesn't even exist. And if we can upgrade Paws for Life a little bit with the help of the county, that would be a good thing for Sky Valley.
why don't we just put that one on the side, Jim, until we have an agreement, a possible agreement with the county, and let's just, yeah, we'll move to the next
fine.
one. Yeah,
Okay, and now the one that may be controversial, I don't know. It's going down to section 6.7 of the animal ordinance. Prevention of wildlife access to refuse. This is our bear ordinance. And one element of the ordinance was to ban bird feeders. And let me just read the substitute language that I would propose for 6.6-7-F-1. Code of Sky Valley should be amended to read as follows. Bird feeders are permitted, but subject to regulation between April 15th and November 15th of each year. During this period, owners of feeders shall manage their feeders responsibly to minimize the likelihood of attracting bears by monitoring the feeders when in use, removing feeders when unattended, limiting the amount of food set out at one time, and removing feeders after dark. The area below feeders must be kept free of spilled food. Feeders shall be removed when bear activity is reported or observed. Seed, suet, fruit, nectar, or other attractants must always be stored securely where not accessible to wildlife. Owners should share these restrictions with renters and may be fined for feeder violations by renters or guests. Now, why would we make this exception? Basically, the bear ordinance was a garbage ordinance. When Ryan was here testifying, he indicated that 80% of his calls were for garbage. Mini feeders, like mini garbage containers, had never been visited by bears. We've made provisions in our bear ordinance for people to buy bear-resistant containers, but we have not mandated that anyone do anything about the issue that results in 80% of the calls. Surely, bears do go on occasion to bird feeders. They remember where they are. That's why we want to take them down when the bears are around, or if the bears have made a business. But the idea of criminalizing bird feeding seems like an unwarranted governmental intrusion into individual prerogatives.
Okay.
We need to give our citizens some credit. And
Okay, can I chime in here, Jim?
Why don't we let
One
him
thing-
finish his presentation?
Yeah, the chief and I have some input on this, please.
Jim, are you done or do you have more to say?
close enough. We had a bear example of activity early this summer. We announced it, and as far as I know, last time I checked, there has been no additional sightings of bears. So I would think that it would be reasonable to let all the folks who are staying at home during COVID feed the birds for the purposes of their own entertainment. Bird feeding is a window to nature for many folks. That's one of the things that people come up here to do. As far as I know, we're the only place in the mountains that is outlawed bird feeding. A lot of people want to obey the law. Nobody wants to deliberately be in violation of the law. And I think we can have a bear-free environment and feed the birds during most of the time for most of the summers. And that's the strategy that I would suggest that we adopt.
Okay, Ella.
Okay, let me reiterate something that DNR, when we adopted this ordinance, told us at the presentation, that DNR, if we go in and change this and allow bird feeders, DNR is not going to respond to our bear calls if we go back and backtrack on this now. That was one of the main things that he stressed, is that the bird feeders had to be taken up during this time period. The research has shown that that is the problem. And now that the actual bird feeders are up during this time, we've not had the activity that we normally have, and the bird feeders do make a difference, but I just want to reiterate that if you go in and change this and we have a bear situation, DNR will not come.
Well, I was there and I heard what Ryan said. And what he said was that they would not respond if we did not pass a bird ordinance. I mean, I'm sorry, a bear ordinance. And I pushed him on that question. Does that require the feeders? And he said, no, you just need to have the bear ordinance so that people control the garbage.
No, the actual problem that we were having, and the chief can chime in on this as well, we've had more problems not with the garbage, but the main issue was a lot of the bird feeders, because that is one thing that they really are drawn to is the bird feeders over the garbage, unfortunately.
Well, I think we may have had some folks in a number of locations around Sky Valley who were actually feeding the bears. And that, in fact, is a violation of state law. So if those folks, and as far as I'm aware, every one of them has, stopped that. So I think it's reasonable to think that that particular issue has been resolved, and that going after the individual feeders that are, small potatoes compared to the big feeding stations, I think this is almost a no-brainer, but I understand it's going to be controversial.
Chief Estes, did you want to chime into this discussion?
I echo what Ella had said previously. When we were having a lot of our issues, Highlands was having some of the similar issues. So Georgia DNR and North Carolina's version of our DNR both agreed that, in their words, bird feed is like crack to a bear. It is an attractant, more so than anything else. And that's their research talking. And that was one of the things that led us to this. And if you look around, there's been multiple other cities that have reached out to us, and their interest was to mimic our bird feeder ordinance, because when we implemented the removal of the bird feeders, our bear problem pretty much went away, with the exception of a tiny group of bears that had been already imprinted. And that's what bears do whenever they locate a food source. They had already imprinted on that. And once we removed those, there was no other bears being attracted to our area. Therefore, our problem was dramatically reduced.
Right, and I remember that that well, Chief. Bird feed is like crack for bears.
Yes, that was their words, not mine.
Yeah, I remember those words. They were quite memorable. I'm just a little suspicious when people start arguing based on an analogy. I mean, if you put a little millet in your hand and look at it and smell it and sniff it, hard to believe it's like crack. It's more like just ordinary food. It's bigger and better than crabgrass seeds.
The proof is in the results, right. And I would beckon you to review the results.
Okay. And the results were that we stopped feeding the bears for a short period of time, and the only ones that ever came back were the ones that were making the rounds again and again to the places where they had been fed, and now are no longer being fed. And now those bears are no longer around, although that might have been the one bear that visited us early this spring.
Absolutely. And since those that had already imprinted are now gone, do you really want to open the door and let a new group of bears come in and get re-imprinted? We don't have that problem now. Do we want to set the environment up to create that?
Okay. Well, I would submit that since people are no longer feeding bears, that we can go back to doing bird feeders as usual, which rarely attracted bears, and that we can do so with the provisions and the educational benefits of people knowing that now we need to watch our feeders, we need to manage our feeders responsibly, we need to take them down completely when there are bears around.
Well, if you want to put them back up and have a new group of bears be attracted to our area, I mean, that's the council's decision. I would say my recommendation would be consult DNR before you make any decision. You've heard what Ella and I, who worked exclusively with them, our thoughts on it are, and we've met multiple times. I would invite you to invite them back in and see what they think.
Any council input?
My recollection from the talk was basically there is no responsible way to put up bird feeders if they're going to attract bears. Now, we can't prove that the bears came because of general bird feeders or because of a few isolated cases where people were actually putting out bird seed to attract bears. So I don't know. I tend to agree that we don't have the problem. I know I've had some neighbors who have had bears climb up the pole to their deck and tear off their bird feeder. They were not feeding bears, they were feeding birds. So it does happen. So I'm inclined to leave the ordinance as it is. And if my mother could hear me say that she was a bird feeder and a lover of birds, I would be in trouble, but I'm sort of inclined to leave it as is.
Any other council?
I would agree with Moody. While I'm empathetic to Jim and what he's trying to do here, the difficulty you have with something like this is people being responsible, and I don't think people can actually follow the details that we're talking about here. And like they say, during the summer, there's plenty of food for the birds. So in the winter, we can put them out, and those of us who live up here in the winter can enjoy them in the winter. But I think if it's working, we shouldn't change it.
Bruce or Bill, do you need to comment?
No, I agree. I mean, we've gone through the effort and mitigated a problem. You know, I understand, Jim, your concern, but we've made the effort to mitigate it. Let's continue.
Bill?
I'm in general agreement with what's been said already.
Okay. All right. Well, that's,
We will not bring this forward for the council meeting then.
okay. All right. What's your next issue, Jim?
Okay, as I look on this particular agenda, I see chapter 24, the nuisance ordinance. And this is another one that is potentially controversial. We've got 13 or 14 pages of nuisance ordinance. It was I don't know if it was an omnibus ordinance or a generic ordinance or an ordinance that we borrowed from someone else. But in it is, let's see, is the what essentially is a leash law that, by my reading, contradicts all the protections that we have regarding dogs in chapter 6. And okay, it's in section 24-2. Now, in chapter 6, animals, dogs must be under the owner's control at all times and in all places. If not, they can be impounded. You can't take them on someone else's private property without their permission. Now, under control, and this is the way.
Ella, Jim is muted again.
He must have hit it. I didn't touch it. Let's see.
I think I might have done that inadvertently, waving my hands around out of sight.
Okay.
You know. I had the button covered up. But there's lots of ways that animals are under the control of owners. Can be, you know, they can be behind a fence. It can be an invisible fence. It could be a leash. It could be an electronic training collar or a physical training collar. The ordinance doesn't specify the means. It allows any kind of technology for controlling, including the owner's voice. So that's fairly broad, and it's defined on the basis of the result. Section 2422 is just one section of one paragraph in many, many, many pages. I don't think it's crafted for Sky Valley. I think we have all the protections we need against dogs running at large. Municode, by the way, deleted all the language in previous ordinances that relate to nuisance dogs. All the other nuisances are of, you know, odor, noise, vegetation, abandoned cars, and many others. The way this particular section is written seems to me to ignore the alternate technologies for controlling dogs, anything other than a leash. I think this particular ordinance seems to be unaware that dogs are considered members of the family and actually live inside the family home, not in runs or fences or outdoor enclosures. And that many dog rescue organizations considered chains to be barbaric and outdoor enclosures almost as reprehensible and reserved for strictly hunting dogs. Sky Valley is not New York City. We don't have crowded conditions that make leashes a reasonable accommodation. Not that leashes are unreasonable. We all restrain dogs at time by them. But Sky Valley does have plenty of open spaces and plenty of places that dogs can safely exercise off their leashes. Some dogs require more active exercise than others.
So let me make sure, Jim, I understand. You're saying you feel that we should eliminate the clause that they're required to be on leashes?
Yes, they don't need to be on leashes at all times. They need to be under control. They need not to approach people who don't want to be approached by dogs. They need to be restrained. They need to be accompanied. But they don't absolutely positively need to be limited to leashes. I think Sky Valley needs everybody, you know, the big dogs, the little dogs. Some dogs are going to run off if they get off the leash. A lot of people don't want to train their dogs to respond to voice. But I think we've got the legal protections that we want and need already in Chapter 6. So that would, so I've offered some alternate language which would change the nuisance ordinance to apply basically to farm type animals, and that let other animals be covered under Chapter 6.
Comments from the council?
I haven't read all of this, but does that, where you say no domesticated or farm animals, does that sort of imply that you can have a farm animal as long as it's within a structure?
Well,
Or why would you even
good
mention
question.
farm animals?
Yeah, I did not construe it at the time to be written to permit those. Clayton and Dillard in recent years, I believe, have passed ordinances permitting chickens to be raised within their city limits. And I would be very surprised if anybody in Sky Valley would want that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just didn't know that if that sort of implied that it was allowed. Because it says, it starts out no domesticated or farm animals shall be permitted, and then it goes to say that it's responsibility to provide a structure.
Yeah.
But
it
it
could be,
doesn't,
that could be misconstrued. I agree with you,
Agreed.
Moody.
Yeah. Okay.
might not want farm animals in there.
Okay.
My other comment goes to,
That needs looking at. You're right. Maybe we ought to revisit that at another time. The larger issue is whether or not we want to keep or retain a leash law, whether we want to put that into Chapter 6. There's a lot of ways to handle it. My recommendation would be that we just don't need it, and perhaps we should delete that particular section.
All right, let's talk about the leash law. Who wants to start?
I will.
All right, Bill.
I believe we need the leash law. I mean, I've had multiple cases where my wife walking our dogs on a leash has been accosted by dogs that are not on a leash. There have been issues where there is a dog that gets walked around our neighborhood that supposedly is under, verbal control, that has jumped on people's cars and scratched it up when the car stops to talk to that individual. So, I just absolutely believe that we need to have this leash law in the ordinance.
I agree, Bill. And, with discussions for a dog park, if we got 10 dogs in the dog park and none of them are on leash, I would think it'd be somewhat chaotic.
Okay. Moody.
Yeah, I have
to the dog park, right?
Moody.
I have
Not
walked
always,
my
but
neighbor's dogs
can.
before and had to break up a dog fight, even though one of the dogs was on a leash. I don't know that you can control dogs. And I don't own dogs, and I've never had a trained dog that I felt I could control by voice if it and another dog, met on the street and decided they didn't like each other. Maybe some people can control their dogs by voice, but I have physically had to break up a dog fight in our neighborhood because of that.
Yep.
Ed.
I agree with the comments that are being made. I don't think that's something we should change.
Okay.
Okay.
Bruce?
Now, I leave it be. Like I say, we're discussing a dog park, and if there's no leash law, I think that would be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one, Jim.
Holly, there's a comment by Bob O'Keefe on the subject.
Okay. All right. Ella.
Okay, it says people are more important than dogs. They need to be kept on the leash in common areas or when out for walks. Many people don't want to be approached by dogs, even if the owner says they are harmless. True statement.
Well said.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other comments from the community? Ella, or was that it?
That was it.
Okay. All right. Traffic and vehicles, Jim?
Okay. There are references. Okay. Traffic and vehicles is section 38, is chapter 38. The nuisance ordinance, again, chapter 24, also talks about abandoned vehicles and declares them to be a nuisance, defines them to be anything parked for over, well, there's a lot of definitional things, but the key one is anything parked in the same place for over 48 hours can be considered abandoned and a nuisance. The penalties, there are none in chapter 38. The penalties are back in the nuisance ordinance. Now, one of the things that codification provides for our citizens is that you can look in one place and see all the law regarding a single subject. Well, here we've got it in two places. So what I am proposing is that we make a reference in the nuisance code, if that's where people are looking first, to go to section 30, to chapter 38. In other words, I would add a little section, 24.2-A, and I would put a little section called 1 underneath that. Chapter 38 of the Code of City of Sky Valley titled Traffic and Vehicles includes provisions related to parking and storage of vehicles, boats, trailers, motorhomes, wrecked vehicles that could become nuisances under the definition of abandoned vehicles. In other words, alert people that there is another ordinance that they need to reference. And then in chapter, so I would put that note, that particular notice in the nuisance ordinance, and in traffic and vehicles, make the provision that enforcement of the parking of such vehicles noted above shall be through the provisions of chapter 24, nuisances, article 2, public nuisances, and in accordance with those sections and pursuant to the enforcement provisions of section 22 through 25. Okay, everybody looks
Comments
past.
from the council? Comments, anybody?
No.
I just want to reiterate something that when we first got started with codification, when you do codifications, like I said previously, this goes through several different attorneys, and Doug, feel free to chime in. The reason why some of these things are written the way they are is so that first of all, so they can be enforced, but also too, we want to make sure that you just don't, because when you start doing these, when you start with these codifications and you start making reference to 1.1.1.1, you seem to muddy up the water. So I want to make sure, again, we don't go and backtrack with what we've already had done. I just, I don't want to see us have gone through all this and end up in a worse spot. So I just want to state that.
Is it my understanding what you're suggesting here is that the in this section, chapter 38 with traffic and vehicles, it doesn't provide for any type of enforcement?
Exactly.
So maybe we should just make that recommendation to Ella and Doug and let them tell us how they would deal with that.
When you go back to your ordinances, and I don't have it all right in front of me right now, but there is a section in there that gives us the capability. It's just like anything that we have that is subject to, and it makes reference to anything within the ordinance that is subject to and how it's to be handled. It does make reference to that. I can't tell you exactly what section, but there is a reference point in there that it talks about how it will be adjudicated, as far as penalty, if it's to go to municipal court, if it's just a fine. I know it's a fine up to $1,000 on most municipalities. Is that right, Doug? Isn't it normally up to $1,000?
Yes.
Okay, because I was thinking we actually already have that, because you don't make reference to in your codification, you don't make reference to, this is how you penalize each section. It goes back to that initial one. Isn't that right, Doug? Isn't that the way it normally works?
Yes, that's correct. There's usually just one section dealing with penalties rather than
Right,
listing the penalty for each.
for each code section, correct.
That's correct.
Well, that's a little bit of a problem. The penalty code that is early in the codification says any violation of these laws can be punished, these ordinances can be punished by a fine of up to $1,000. Whereas if you have a nuisance, you have to first receive an order to abate the nuisance or request a hearing. It has to state the location of the nuisance, the description of the nuisance, the acts necessary to abate the nuisance, and if not abated, has to mention that the city will file an action in the municipal court. And I think that's probably the procedure we want to follow for parking provisions, rather than take them straight to municipal court and be fined.
No, actually,
To move their vehicle.
Jim, nuisances are handled a little bit differently in the law than just criminal violations. Not to get too deep into it, but nuisances are something that are not inherently illegal. So that's why the law requires the cities to kind of give you a chance to fix it before they fine you or put you in jail. Whereas criminal violations are inherently bad, so that the city would have authority to go ahead and fine you, or take you to court immediately. So that there is a difference between nuisances and criminal violations, which this traffic stuff is. So no, I mean, I think the way that it's written in the codification should stand, because nuisances are a little bit different than traffic violations.
And also too, state law does address this as well. So that's,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, so you have to refer back to state law.
They are, yeah, on the traffic.
I thought one of the benefits of codification was so that our citizens can look at the ordinance and not have the experience that so many people had with the tree ordinance, where you had trees discussed in 3 different places and people had alternate facts that seemed to collide. Do we, if we enforce chapter 38, does that go straight to the court? Or do you want to have it enforced the way it is for other nuisances?
Chief, you want to chime in on that one, since you and your officers handle this?
Yeah, there's a couple of dynamics that you need to consider, because we are a unique breed here in Sky Valley. I'll just give you an example. Neighbor would call and complain of an abandoned vehicle in their neighbor's yard. Unbeknownst to them, the neighbor had their friends take them to the airport and they flew away for a 10 or 12-day cruise. Is that an abandoned vehicle? By law, yes, even if it's on private property. So we don't really address a lot of this, because we know when these incidences occurred. The most common thing we deal with when they're left on your property and it's not your vehicle, or if it's left on the side of the road or down at the chapel or at the church or at the club. But there's different stipulations for private property and public property. We don't have a large issue with abandoned vehicles as much as we do with campers, trailers, and motorhomes being parked there. So those are the issues we deal with more directly. So while you're having the discussion, just think about why we have cars sitting in some of our driveways for multiple days without moving. Because we do have people that will, hey, our motto, we're your what? We're your base. We're your home base. And they park their car here and get with a friend and go to Kentucky. That car might sit in that yard for 3-4 days to a week. You know, so those are the kind of things we have to investigate and look into before we even take action.
We also have people in my neighborhood who have their mountain car that they leave here year round, and when they come up, they drive their mountain car, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's lots of those.
Keith, is there a distinction between parked in a legally designated parking space as opposed to anywhere else?
The distinction is public, public and private. Those are the distinctions that the Georgia Code addresses. For example, the club would be private property.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the
Therefore-
distinctions.
And therefore exempt?
No, it can still be, if a car's left, for example, if I park my car down at the club and I didn't get permission from the club, that's private property. If my car sits there for 3 days, the police will declare it as an abandoned. We have 72 hours to locate the owner. If we can't within 72 hours, we're permitted to tow the vehicle. But see, there's a process. Private property, public property, there's different time frames. One is 24 hours, one of them is like 2 days, one's like 3 days. But at the end of the day, the distinction that's only made is private property versus public property. Public would be if they left their car sitting on the side of the road, for example. If it's causing a traffic issue, meaning a safety issue, we would immediately remove it. Of course, like if it was in one of the curves on the mountain road, we would get it out of there because it could cause an accident. But if it's not causing immediate danger, we give them that time frame to come get their car, get a record, and get it removed. If not, and we can't locate them by running their tag, getting a phone number from dispatch, trying to get in touch with them, we'll remove it. And then whenever they come looking for their car, we can tell them which record service has their car.
Right. Now, the nuisance ordinance is enforced not by the police department, but by our building inspector. Does the police department enforce Chapter 38, the traffic in vehicles?
Can I read
I
a
don't
comment
recall.
that Bob O'Keefe has put on here, please? It says, it seems that some of these issues are dealing with minutia. And it says, if every possibility has to be outlined, then the code of law would be thousands of volume and no one would read.
Well, Chief, if you want to go ahead and answer Jim's question about who enforces the nuisance ordinance.
Primarily Bob Powers, our inspector, that falls under his area. We do get involved when there's other questions that pertain to the law and the legality, such as, is the vehicle does it not have a vehicle tag on it, for example? You know, could it be a stolen vehicle? Is it causing a traffic issue? Is it unsafe where it's parked? Is it on your property and you want it removed and they have refused to remove it after you spoke to them? Situations like that, we interject ourselves. But traditionally, if there's just a car in a driveway that's or a camper, most likely up here it will be like a camper, then Bob Powers would address that.
Right. At which point, if they do not move it after they are notified by Bob Powers, is that when you get involved, Chief?
That's when Bob will issue them with a city summons, which is his equivalent of a citation.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have to, most of the time, they'll have to appear before our judge or they'll have to pay their fine. We've ran into that most recently with boats parked in driveways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
So,
Yeah, we
thank-
had a citizen who was irate over that. Yeah.
Jim, you're just trying to define how this 38 would be enforced by adding this one section,
Well,
or it refers back
right.
to the nuisance.
That's one of the issues, Moody, is how are we going to enforce it? But the second issue is that the same subject is covered in 2 places in our ordinances. I mean, again, you could take it out of the nuisances and just put it in the other one, but you'd have to put some enforcement into the other one. I think it's useful for the usability of our code for people to go to one thing, and if we're going to have it in two places, we ought to at least alert them that there's another place they need to look.
Jim, have you gone in and done a search on the code? Say, like, for instance, if you're looking at animals and just you type in animals, have you done a search like that where you put in your keyword? Because it will list all the different sections that it makes reference to.
I've been dealing with the Muni Code Word document that included all the old ordinances they had stricken out, which is a linear sort of thing. And it's quite difficult to navigate through.
I thought I had sent you all the link. Didn't I send you all the link? I thought I had sent you the link on it that you can actually go into.
I'm looking forward to seeing it on the website where you can search like that. That would be a big help.
Well, then let's just put that to the side so we can see what the search engine is going to do for us at this point, if that's okay with you, Jim, and we can bring
Sure,
it back
sure.
again.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'd be nice if, and we think the website's going to be live by the end of the week.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and send you all that link for the codification. I was thinking I'd already sent it to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for all your work on this. How about we go to item 7, which is Doug, that's you, for a report on the possible emergency exit roadway process and the title searches.
Okay. Before our meeting this morning, I called the clerk of court's office to see about if they had reopened yet, and they said they had not. Monday, they will reopen fully. They did say I could call and get a appointment sometime this week for them to let me in specifically, and I'm going to try for Friday. I don't have anything on my calendar for Friday.
Great.
Oh, never mind. My secretary is now saying that it's only appointment next week for anybody and nothing this week. So I will try next week to call and get them. Sorry.
Okay.
So I will get that. As far as the roadway, I've got a letter written to all the residents of what we want to say to them in that. I just wanted to double check because y'all gave me a plat showing the easements and things like that. I just wanted to double check that at the courthouse before we sent it out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So it might not be, you might not know by next Tuesday, the regular council meeting is what you're saying.
That's a possibility.
Okay.
I will have it definitely done by next Friday, just because depending on when they get me in. So.
Okay. Moody, Moody, did you have anything to add to the emergency exit process?
No, I think that's sort of the key, the thing that we do have some sort of easement granted to us to use that road before we pursue it too far.
Okay.
Holly, I have a question about that. I guess Tim Darrow reported to me that he rode down there the other day as far as he could to the gate. So I think Moody indicated there was some logs or something across the road before, but who has the key to the gate? Does that the city have that, Ella?
No, that is a private gate. That
Think
is a
Ed
private
West?
gate.
Okay.
Is it Ed West that has that?
No, that's a different location where he has that gate.
Okay.
We got a bunch of gates around here.
So do we know specifically who's got it?
Yeah, the property owner, that's on his private property.
Okay.
I thought that.
Go ahead.
Does the Sky Valley Police Department have keys to provide for emergency access if needed through there?
Not to my knowledge, because that property sold not recently, and he never did give us, I don't know if he's changed the locks or anything. I'm not sure if he's given the chief or anything like that, because the road right now, the way it is, would be hard for people to get in and out of.
Is the chief still on?
Yes, he's still there.
Do you have a key, Chief?
We had keys to all 3 gates at one time, but in recent times, because of the events at hand, neither me nor James has keys to all 3 gates. We have
Okay.
deadbolts, I mean, bolt cutters, if we needed to evacuate
Yeah.
town, we
Yeah.
could implement them. But we currently do not have all three. We used to have them. We do not no longer.
Okay, so Ella, you maybe can look into that.
Yeah, we can see that the one is, like I said, is a private gate. I'm not sure if he'll give us a key, but what he may do is double lock it like we've done some of the Georgia Power gates. We've taken some of the Georgia Power gates and we put double locks, so we can take our lock off and they can unlock it and then they can go back and put theirs on too. So we've done that. I'll check with them and see.
If you could do that, that would be great. So that will get this process going maybe.
Okay.
Any other comments about that?
I will say that in the past, when we did have access and keys, especially on the lower gate, it had gotten so far out of hand that people had removed the gate from the post and threw it down the mountain, 25 to 50 feet straight down the embankment, cut our chains multiple times, cut our locks multiple times. And like I said, even took the gate off the hinges, removed the hinges and discarded the gate. So it's been a pain for us as well as Georgia Power.
Okay. Okay. Duly noted. Thank you, Chief. Do you have a recommendation for that, Chief?
I think that we need, as you guys are doing right now, I think we need a legal document defining the easement, the rights to transgress the area.
Right.
And I think we need to get on board with Georgia Power because they share the same interest we do.
Good advice.
One thing, Doug, you might look at, I know the city has a water line down that road, but I do not remember that there was ever a utility easement granted specifically and recorded, or if that's a prescriptive easement that the city would have the right to go down there and maintain the water line. But that's another thing you might look and see if you can find a utility easement granted to the city.
Okay, all right.
Good idea. Thank you, Moody. And Moody, you had said that they had removed the tree that was across the roadway.
Yeah, but it's a four-wheel drive road, basically. You wouldn't
Yeah.
want to go down there in a passenger car.
A good four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just keep a herd of horses down there and everybody can get on.
So
Okay.
we'll get that road fixed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. I want to thank everybody. Oh, no, public forum. Do we have any comments or questions, Ella?
No, that was it. Bob O'Keefe's last one was it.
Okay. Well, thank everybody for attending this
Holly?
meeting. Yes.
Holly, do you want to make mention of additional activities, meetings this afternoon?
Yes, we have an executive session this afternoon. And we also have a mayoral advisory committee meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And Ella sent out the login so that you all can attend. Okay?
Holly, Debbie had a comment. Debbie Dollhouse had a comment.
She's
Okay.
asking if the gate at Driver Lane can be removed. We'll have to check into that because I'm not sure if we actually put that gate up or not. So I'll have to do some research on that one to be sure.
That gate's been here a very long time.
Yeah,
and
that's what I know, so I'm not
It
sure.
used to be, it was considered a security issue to close off that exit. And it used to stay locked unless there was the need to open it up for trucks or for ambulances.
Right. Okay, I'll check into that one.
Okay? And why would we need to remove it?
It's ugly.
It is that.
A resident on Driver Lane requested that it be removed so we could landscape the area, like we
Oh,
did
I
the
see.
front
see.
section, front
I see.
entrance.
Okay. Did we ever survey the people that lived in that area? Because I know several people in that area who wanted it to remain closed because they felt more secure that people couldn't just flip in and out of there and quickly. I don't know.
Well, we also opened it, my understanding is one reason it is open is because of the ambulance going up. It's easier for them to get to somebody on that side going in that entrance than it is to come all the way in and then go back.
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
And the police would open it up when the ambulances were coming, yeah. Okay, any other comments? All right, thank you all for everybody attending. Please, when we send out through the city our drafted mission and vision statement, please take the time to, we'll have an email where you can respond, and we'd love to hear from you all, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Holly,
Wait, one more.
Yep. It's okay.
You're adjourning faster than I can type. If the gate remains, can the garden club landscape on the sides of the road, or is that not city property?
That's what I need to check out first.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you, Debbie. Bruce, did you have something to say?
No, I was just noting that Debbie had one more comment.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
So
motion.
moved.
Thank you. All right, Bruce has made the motion and Jim has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
See you in a minute.
See ya.
Yeah.